Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your mayor of Abbotsford. And the first thing I'm going to do is bring the best law enforcement into Abbotsford, the RCMP. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you an update of what's taking place in Abbotsford, how it's taking place, and why the Abbotsford police men that work here have to be gone and investigated, kicked off force, and never allowed to see duty ever again. Seniors, investigators, corporates, and everybody else going to be dragged like they've never been dragged for what took place in this high elite of an organization of criminal activity. When the Abbotsford police drive around, they're all law enforcement, they drive around with a notebook. That notebook is to take reports and investigate and do investigations. So I want to start you off here. When this started to go bad on the general community of Abbotsford, it is when Henry Braun took the mayorship. It never happened under George Perry, George Ferguson, Bruce Banman, or any other mayor. It was driven by pure greed. Henry lobbied his friends, his brother, and his son, all in official capacity to the city or on the police board, and then he started loading the police board with Sandy Blue, Mark Warkentine, and everywhere. He was loading positions of office to get favors. Henry then brought the Abbotsford newspaper on board that could block every story, hold it down, so there was no investigations. When there is such a magnitude of our Abbotsford police threatening in the general public with eyewitnesses, not hearsay, eyewitnesses to drop videos or lawsuits or I will personally bury you, to make false statements that a man's house has been breaking into and that's why he was going there. And it was a lie. His staff sergeant, he said he went there to take his shithole orders from the head of the mob, Henry Braun. You need to call the Police Complaints Commission in and investigate. Mike Sir wasn't doing that. So let me take you on a little joyride here for Abbotsford. These men that work here believe that the uniform and the way they complain to the press and their friends within the back and the politicians that were asking them to do favors, the company will clean them. They believe that they supplied a service to Abbotsford to get rid of us. We're very important to this community. First of all, they frauded your tax dollars. Let's make that clear. So let me tell you what they've done. In Abbotsford Police history of Abbotsford Police, the mayor sits on the board to correct the problem, haul the officer in the ground, bring him before the city, and get rid of him. This wasn't being done. None of it. It is a clear picture that I have showed Abbotsford residents, and you could see here at the police department with not Mike Sir coming and cutting the new ribbons and announcing it, that they distanced themselves from the head of their mob. But their retaliation is that their company's being attacked and their jobs are going to be attacked, so now we got to retaliate. When Henry's son opened his mouth, being the proving officer in front of his dad, fast-tracking jobs, it was organized crime, no matter how you look at it, and it was to steal from Abbotsford taxpayers using police, saying we're building a building, rushing jobs, Ron Funkaddiverse, and blocking everybody else. And when Henry couldn't get his way, he used muscle and threats. When the Abbotsford MLA and the MP at FAST were involved, they were telling you to cut deals, while the RCMP were like, no, they should get the feds involved now. So let me explain. When Abbotsford police have a service to supply, and they get out and they jump on top of your community vehicles, what you pay for, to do charity, and damage them, your tax dollars are going up to supply more vehicles on the windshields and everything else. When they get out here and play childish games, dumping ice on each other, and not doing their services, but they want to be paid. When they threw Canada Day Parade and they all went behind the Abbotsford police having hot dogs and Mickeys and everything else on your tax dollars, it's fraud. When they went down on the CP track, knowing that's the CP police with one call, there's homeless there, the CP move in and they move in swift because it's a federal offense to be on that track, and you go to the federal pen. They saw a way to take that money. When they went after the Ag Fair and stood around there and knew that the Ag Fair has very little money, that they could fraud them. When they went to the air show and didn't donate their time. When they went down in front of Paviati's restaurant and picked up a prostitute and had their way with them in a company vehicle on duty and failed, their investigators up top failed to investigate who that officer was, go out and take reports, fill that black book and get it to the Police Complaints Commission. Abbotsford Police were not here to supply a service to Abbotsford. They were supplying a service to Henry Braun, Henry Braun's friends, and they were covering up elite criminal organization of crime. It was how they could manipulate that position in that company through outlets and investigators that they know of friends to keep the company afloat. Make no mistake that I'm not here to remove law enforcement. I'm here to bring the best law enforcement. I'm here to remove the scumballs that failed to do anything. These scumballs used younger guys that are innocent of it all, and they figured they would have. Now, when they went out and attacked the South Asian Mogul who stood up to run for mayor with the task force and unmarked cars to derail him for Henry Braun, it affects every South Asian to know that the Abbotsford Police should not be helped by the South Asian community because this white-collar crime is too much. Councillor Mogul believed in his heart what Henry was doing with his son, Abbotsford First, Ram Funka Diverse, Marcus Dalvis, Dave Sidhu, Kelly Shahal, Brenda Falk, Abbotsford newspaper, Rick Rakes, and everything. It was time to call it out. He ran for mayor, and Henry knew he needed to block him so the forensic audits wouldn't come. The Abbotsford Police were asked, and Mike Sir did this. When I saw that, with the great help of the RCMP, I put my name forward to run, knowing that Henry and his team would have to do it. They blocked every avenue from me from campaigning. The RCMP said we want to make that shown so they could see that cause that was purposely done. Using the Abbotsford newspaper they blocked. You could see it at UFB they were blocking, and they were running interference. You could see what Greg Toes did when he tried to bribe me. You could see where they were trying to slow candidates down. Why? This man was running, Manji Sohi. Derailing Ross would put him as mayor, or me as mayor, and the RCMP are coming in. The Abbotsford Police then went as far as this. Henry knew what he was doing when he was lobbying and lifting jobs with his son. He got in his Alexis car after Gertie Purdy removed the protest and it left from here and came and proceeded to end my life. Stood in his Alexis car on the gas. The call went to 911. You could hear 911 say, stay there. The call sent me to the hospital. There was no investigations. Donna Macy and Mike Sir blamed. Mike Sir, the police chief, stayed in this office to run interference on me all the time, go after my driver's license, try to run me out of town, keep the heat on me. These guys would never get called out where law enforcement will make Mr. Pelican look like he's the bad guy and we're supplying a service and constantly cranked. I made it clear to the RCMP. The RCMP said, get it witnessed. These guys went as far as falsifying lies, making threats with lies. Thanks to the RCMP, we had lawyers, we had everything in play. They went in front of my job site to impede me. Then they sat in front of my house constantly because they believed it was their right. And they believed that they were doing this for the better of Abbotsford. They were covering up what was hidden from Abbotsford residents behind the scenes. Today, Abbotsford City, some of the workers in the city and in Chilliwack informed me this about Nicole Reid. Nicole Reid, I told you, is a sitting councillor of Chilliwack, and she's on all these boards of Abbotsford, stealing the funding and everything. Chilliwack staff told me, you know why she's not getting hauled in the ground? By the mayor here, or she's getting kicked out of here, or why she's not in the newspaper being hauled in. She's giving the decisions in Chilliwack for Ram Funka Diverse so he could extend there. It's clear, changing the zoning, what Henry Braun did. So now let's talk about law enforcement. I want to talk to you about law and why I can see over this scum shit that sits upstairs, pardon my language, on these computers and believes. Men and women that signed up to fulfill a duty so all residents are protected, and there's not two levels here, for the rich and the poor. Men and women that have an obligation to the law abused them. Henry's son in front of him showed the law that he was in conflict of interest and Henry was stealing city funds to get that. Dave Lowens, Ross Siemens' sign on Ram Funka Diverse's job site, which is illegal by elections, by any company or corporation to run a mayor, shows that you were paying bribes to the mayor to get him in for favors. That's how the zoning changed. For Henry Braun and his wife to show up at the city on Sunday after church before going to Guillon's and take Cooper's Farm off the schedule to change it shows all law enforcement that the only reason you did that, and then you blamed the city lawyer and the city manager rather than sending it back so 6,000 people or more who signed protests and petitions could now get a hearing at the city because you were in bed with Polygon. These acts were done under this company. This company now uses every leverage it is that it's going to show that it's doing good for the community. It's distanced itself, as I'll show you. It's so obvious their guiltiness, it's unbelievable. The 5 leaders of Abbotsford never came out and spoke how this was. They have no choice but to come here and say, this is a great building, we need this building, it's the only way we can stay and run our organized crime. We don't need the RCMP in here, we need it. No one has stood here about this building. The former police chief, Mike Sir, who brought his guys to a level that is unbelievable, never came back here to speak. His guys believe that they're defending his honor when they come out and tap. What took place a couple of nights ago by a manager of a facility making a false claim to 911 to Abbotsford Police to derail me on a DUI and turn my life upside down was another one of their joyrides and their shit under their uniform and their garbage. What should have took place under that procedure without me telling them in that black book was, now let's go back to the manager, pull the video films, the cameras there, and charge her. First of all, you took the hit and you got embarrassed because you were operating off adrenaline. And now you're being dragged across social media all over. And what you should have did with response is went back to the manager of that building and said, listen, we're going to teach you a lesson for abusing 911. We're going to teach you a lesson for falsifying them claims against the politician. We're going to teach you because you had no proof, the cameras are nothing, and you used us and you made us look like jackass. These guys ain't investigators. They're just scums of the earth. Every chance you see them, from stealing gas out of our cop cars, no investigations. From threats on the homeless, using tax dollars or nothing. What held them in place was the guys that were running them from the back. Henry Braun, Mike Dion, and the people from the back. You haven't even seen the coward Ross Siemens. We have a mayor that has to be your mayor, that allowed people on Mackenzie Bog to get deadly, deadly sick. We got a mayor that sat on a decision in front of Henry's house that wiped out seniors and damaged their homes and put them in a massive lawsuit and watched them struggle. That shouldn't have. We got a mayor that knocked this gas station down and took it to mission to poison the aquifer. This is Ross Siemens. We got a mayor that the other day there was a police function and he never showed up. We got mayors and police chiefs that when Brad Viss came in here and through the police meeting for the community, nobody showed up to speak. Not the police chief, not the mayor, not a representative, nothing, because it's their own company and it's about them. We got these guys telling me the other night, good luck in trying to collapse the company now, Mr. Pelican, with your DUI charge. Good luck going for the mayorship. Oh, really? Good luck trying to do this. It was a bragging right. You could see it, that they're in panic mode and shutdown. We got a police chief, Watts, that was handpicked, that can't address the problems, can't maintain strength in Abbotsford, uses the gangs for manipulation, comes out with a story of Vicky Hope saying, oh, alcohol, we did a raid on alcohol. Now it's going to turn Abbotsford inside out, running up times and gas cards to try to make the police presence everywhere. And that'll be a useless excuse. We can see Vicky Hope's articles. If I write good stuff about the police and I stand beside them, they won't investigate me for all that. So you can see that move being done. You don't got to even be an officer. We had 66 people at Mike DeYoung's house when people weren't allowed to be even gathering, were facing jail. Any illegal party, dead drunk, and a former George Perry, Marcus Dalvis, Dave Sadu, and everybody there. Abbotsford police were put on high alert because that would have been a scandal like no other. You know what showed up? Nobody. You know why? Because they were told to cease and desist. Henry Brown was a mastermind of setting up an elite organization of a criminal ring to fund and steal out of cities' bank accounts, inflate your taxes. He used his son. He used this. We have a police chief and his men that are investigators knew Sandy Blue was appointed to the police board and that was unfair. We have a police chief knowing that Barty Sandhu, who is running for city council, Sandy Blue and her team made false accusations that I grabbed her up the dress on her whipper-wapper. You would distance yourself from that, but this scum keeps hanging on it. We got a police that went in and under the name saw $71 million to fraud out of Abbotsford taxpayers and do it in the name of the company and sympathy, that where they were supplying a better service. We don't see David Eby in here. We don't see Bruce Behrman in here. We don't see anybody propping up this shithole company. What took place on Abbotsford residents and myself has the whole of Abbotsford community helping me, and I'm proud to lead them. We saw no investigations. We saw no police doing nothing. Why? Let me assure you why. When I saw they were purposely blocking investigations and reports from the court so Henry could be charged in these acts, I knew they were holding it down for them elite people in the back, and they weren't doing their function, and they weren't bringing it to the court. I stood up now to be on social media to make sure it's aware. So I want to make Chief Watts think, and listen very good, Watts. I can see the avenue you got to approach. You got to up the mentality of we need more people out in Abbotsford. You got to show your presence bigger. You got to run up the gas cards and time cards more to show your appearance. You got to start begging on other police forces that we're all supposed to work together, and we're being hammered and we're being done. I want to make sure that you're aware of that it was the mission RCMP that accomplished the unbelievable out of their hearts to help all Abbotsford residents. It's obvious what these men were doing. We got men in there saying, you can't kick me off the force, you can't come after me, what are I going to do with my severance package and all this? It's organized crime. We got a former police chief that doesn't show his ass back here at all. We got officers that died and nobody saw in the memorial. We got everything going on. We got these young recruits in Abbotsford doing the jobs of these senior leaders. We have young teenagers stabbed, and we got no police presence of anything because they're shit in their drawers of how they could quit the job. The first thing that we need to do is understand this. The first thing that must happen is the task force that went after Mogal, we're going to identify their arm. If they think that they can run around and do this and our names and faces should be shielded from the gangs, is wrong. We have to make that accountability. The 9 officers that came after me have to be held out in their face. They believe, well, we're in the mud. The second thing we're going to do is say we have to go after all these men driving them unmarked cars and the new vehicles that were bought. I'm adamant, ladies and gentlemen, to bring the strength of the law here. So there's accountability, there's honesty, and the justice system puts you before the court, and the courts make the decisions and the sentence. An Abbotsford judge told me when we started this, he knew that it was going so bad with what they were doing, violence had to be seen. I think every day that the cops that die here are doing dirty work for Henry and somebody retaliated against them. They come out and make a statement in their uniform with their perfume and their hair done up. Oh, our officer died in the line of duty. Use the press, blow it up, and kind of cover it. This is an elite mob. This mob went in and owned this city. You can't derail somebody from an election. You can't block somebody from election. You can't be an officer in the line of duty and threaten. You can't. They failed every which way to this community. Now they figure if we can sit here, we can gouge and gouge and gouge and gouge. First thing they should have did is show that they're proud of Abbotsford. Showing they're proud to be here in service, they didn't. You didn't see Mike Sher drag his ass here with Colin Watts and cut the ribbon for Abbotsford Police. They distanced themselves, showing their criminal activity. We removed ourselves from that gang member. We didn't see Henry Brown stand here. We didn't see the 5 leaders stand here. When Darren Brown opened his mouth, that the city was a juicy plum, and Henry was loading everything. And I want to make it clear, Henry Brown was the mastermind and is the mastermind. He put them all together. He put Jake Siemens together, he put Ron Funk together, he put them all together and lobbied millions of dollars, and then shut down other developers and other contractors and was pushing. Increased violence through the developers and increased fighting and increased everything. Then used the city positions because he had no muscle to do it himself and he couldn't do it legit. I know somebody. Olenoff, can you do me a favor? Gertz, can you do me a favor? Mike Sir, can you do me a favor? I stand here today by pure luck that Henry was a fuck up the day he was born, and he was a fuck up when he got in that car and tried to end my life, and he was a fuck up when he went in that city with them guys. A free and a surviving man. That my kids ain't asking the Abbotsford Police who killed my dad, who was the murderer, and Mike Sears covered it with Olenoff in the top. The Abbotsford veterans have to and must be called out and must be gone. They're shitting their drawers really bad. You could see them. They believe that if we go after Mr. Pelican and we go after these issues, we're defending the company and everything. You're not defending nothing. It's pure retaliation about your jobs and everything you're doing. The law has to be here, and we need the best, and we got to bring the RCMP in, and we got to make sure that this goes back before the courts and it goes before the general public and everybody's aware of it. I'm live, Abbotsford, British Columbia.